Legacy automakers will be okay when everybody realises that EVs are a big con. So says this chap, let's call him Ken, who left a comment on one of my previous videos which I'd like to dismantle now. Legacy automakers will certainly not be okay for various reasons. Number one, lots of countries are banning the sale of internal combustion engines, and those engines are the main profit driver of these companies. No more internal combustion engine production, no profitability. This is disastrous for traditional car companies. Number two, consumers are waking up to the realisation that EVs are better in every way than ICE cars. Performance, safety, cost of ownership, practicality, environmental benefits, features and functionality, I could go on, and indeed I do go on in many of my previous videos. Feel free to check them out later. 3. Legacy auto companies are lagging behind in electric vehicle technology, manufacturing capabilities, software, and everything that matters to make them competitive to Tesla, Chinese EV manufacturers, and the handful of EV startups that might just survive this transition from horse and cart to internal combustion engine to where we are today, the electric vehicle revolution. Next, says Ken, we will be forced into a world of hurt when we have a majority of EV cars. Cleaner air for everyone. The ability to charge for free at home using solar panels, smarter cars with better technology for keeping everyone safer, and in my humble opinion, far nicer and more fun to drive. The genuine world of hurt that we are inflicting onto the world is not only the crazy amount of pollution ICE vehicles create, transport produces around a third of the UK's total emissions for example, but the dumb cars and poor drivers that account for 1.3 million deaths a year on our roads. Electric cars coupled with over-the-air software updates that continually improve not only the infotainment and features of a car, but also refine the active safety features such as automatic emergency braking, which detects vehicles, pedestrians or objects in front of you and applies the brakes to mitigate impact. Having felt my Tesla briefly take over and move me to safety when I was about to be sideswiped on a motorway, I for one cannot wait for all dumb cars to get smarter, because let's face it, there's an awful lot of stupid humans who think they are more than capable of texting whilst driving for example, without a care in the world for watching the road and the people they put at risk, and for those millions of people that have already been horrifically injured or killed at the hands of these thoughtless, selfish morons who use their phones whilst driving. There, I've always wanted to get that off my chest. In my view, the arrival of self-driving cars that avoid making such foolish choices cannot happen soon enough. What next then, Ken? There will be no more overnight cheap rate charging. In fact, because the grid won't support the additional draw, then we will see blackouts and they will introduce time slots for charging at home. Okay, that was clear. Now Ken, I don't know which country you are living in, but here in the UK, the National Grid have said on many occasions that the grid will be able to cope with the full transition to electric vehicles, and there's a few good reasons. Number one, more renewable energy generation continues to be installed year after year, not only in the UK but around the world too. China, for example, has bolstered its position as global renewables leader with solar capacity more than the rest of the world combined. Renewable power is on course to shatter more records as countries around the world speed up deployment. Number two, a quick look at one of my favourite websites. The National Grid Live shows our electricity demand dropping from 36.5 gigawatts in 2012 to just 29 gigawatts in 2023. We are using far less electricity, partly due to more efficient appliances and the simple act of switching to LED light bulbs. Couple that with plummeting use of coal and an uprising of renewable energy, and the fear-mongering of supposed blackouts and forced time slots for charging starts to look rather unlikely and quite frankly a bit silly. 3. To suggest cheap overnight tariffs will go away reflects a misunderstanding of why it's offered in the first place. This is the cheapest time to use electricity as most people are in bed, so energy demand is at its lowest. The result? The grid isn't placed under as much strain, so energy suppliers will offer electricity at lower prices to tempt you in to use up that renewable super cheap energy coming from wind amongst other things. What happens to car owners living in high-rise apartments? I like this question as it's a legitimate, genuine concern for lots of people, rather than a projection of negativity and stubbornness or unwillingness to change, as perhaps some of these types of questions imply. At present, a rapid charger can fill your electrons in around 20 minutes from 0 to 80%. Doing this once a week might not quite be as quick as filling up at a petrol station, but it is doable for those without a driveway or that live in apartments. As battery chemistry continues to improve and we see things like solid-state batteries becoming a thing, charging times could well drop to just a few minutes in the future. As of now though, most cars spend the majority of their life sat in a parking space somewhere, a car park, place of work, shopping centre, restaurant, street or wherever. where they can be slowly charged from the literally tens of thousands of public chargers available. Ken continues, as far as the CO2 savings, it takes approximately 80,000 miles of driving one to offset the amount it takes to build an EV. Well, that's just disastrous. I'm going to sell it right now. One of the most thoroughly successful smear campaigns against EVs that's not only lingered around like a bad smell, but has even bloated itself from 50,000 miles to 80,000 miles, I see. It's almost as if people relish in this rubbish reporting. Now utterly debunked thanks to people like Michael Liebrich here, the real figure to offset the CO2 emissions of an average electric vehicle happens at just 16,000 miles. Everything thereafter is not only a net positive saving, but the number of miles driven continues to decrease and improve as the energy grid gets cleaner with more renewables. Battery chemistry improves with things like LFP batteries, which are now in half of Teslas sold today, which contain zero cobalt by the way, plus the future recycling of batteries which will reuse 95% of battery materials. This really is an admirable, beautiful thing to aim towards. The CO2 savings of switching to electric vehicles is now undeniably proven to be true. And what a shocker, this particular smearing of EVs has come directly from Aston Martin's Director of Global Government and Corporate Affairs. It doesn't take much digging to uncover that at the heart of pretty much every EV-hating article is an engine-making, fossil fuel-supporting car company. Next, says Ken, apart from all of that, there is the additional cost of purchase over ICE equivalents. Well, was true, however, electric cars are pretty much at price parity of ICE right now, depending on which country you live in, of course. In the UK, the average new car price is around £39,000, yet you can get a new electric MG4 that'll cost you just less than £27,000. Not bad. In California, a Tesla Model 3 can be bought for $30,740, including incentives and a federal tax credit of $7,500. That's £24,000 for a brand new Tesla. In China, this Wuling Hongguang mini EV starts from as little as £4,000, which is $5,000. With all the safety features of a tuk-tuk. This wouldn't be my first choice of family car, but given there are roughly 300 electric vehicle makers in China, prices are most certainly comparable to that of an ICE car. Wherever you are in the world, prices for EVs will continue to drop fast as competition heats up, batteries become far cheaper, and EV manufacturers continue to improve and save costs. Just wait until Tesla release their $25,000 car next year. Card in the corner if you want to know more about that. Final nail and coffin spring to mind. Back to Ken. Higher insurance cost. No, not my experience. As a Tesla Model 3 owner of 4 years now, this car has been the cheapest insurance of any I've owned previously, at just £570 for my wife and I to be insured on. And despite what you might expect, I've not come from a long line of Lamborghinis and Bentleys. I'm talking Minis and Vauxhall Astras here. To anybody wondering the cost of insuring an electric car, shop around for an insurance quote. You might find it's more reasonable than you think. Oh, and Ken still wasn't finished. And certainly as we see much higher depreciation. Electric cars depreciate just as non-EVs do, though they tend to retain their value more effectively than petrol or diesel cars. This is due to the demand for electric cars, which is currently at an all-time high thanks to the rising costs of petrol and diesel and the 2030 production ban. So no. Where are the battery recycling plants that we will require? Battery recycling facilities like Redwood Materials are twiddling their thumbs just waiting for battery packs to come through the door. Modern batteries are lasting far better than anyone imagined. Tesla's own data shows that Model S and Model X batteries retain about 90% of their original capacity on average over 200,000 miles of use, where current battery modules should last between 300 and 500,000 miles. So these battery recycling facilities might still be years away from actually receiving battery packs to recycle. Yet there are plenty of companies around the world gearing up for this huge financial opportunity. Given that 95% of battery materials can be recycled, it will be cheaper to do that than mine for new materials. This future closed-loop system makes sense on every level, and thanks to previous co-founder and CTO of Tesla JB Straubel, he's leading the way at Redwood Materials, which I urge anyone interested in the battery recycling process to check out. I'll link a description below. Oh Ken, there's more. Will the charging infrastructure be able to cope when nearly all cars are EVs? Yes, I answered that earlier somewhere. No country has said that they won't be able to cope. I can envisage queues of cars and some ragged tempers. I imagine you can, Ken. But these whataboutisms can obviously go on forever. I can envisage ragged tempers and queues at petrol pumps, exploding petrol stations or oil spills. Oh, but these things actually do happen. The bigger picture then. There's nothing wrong with asking these questions as Ken has done, but be warned, there is a lot of already debunked nonsense out there regarding electric cars. Don't fall for the smear campaigns, think for yourself, do a bit of research, and let's progress into a cleaner, brighter future for all life on Earth, which is the bigger goal here. Without this widespread shift to EVs, there is no plausible route to meeting the UK's legally binding target of net zero greenhouse emissions by 2050, and the same is true globally. Transport is evolving, just as it has done before, and just like the time when the infrastructure of petrol stations needed to be built out, the widespread charging infrastructure must grow as well, along with switching to primarily a renewable energy system. This is the reality of where we are today. We are somewhere along this path, but don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. Don't get caught up in the weeds of despair, embrace the positive change. That's a warm fuzzy end, isn't it? I think I'll leave it there. A special thanks to Ken for sharing his comments and giving me easy content to make. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. What do you think of my ramblings? And do check these out. I've made loads of Tesla-centric content and I'm doing my best to grow this little channel, so please do like, subscribe, hit that little bell end and share me around like a dirty hoe. I'm Will, this is the Tesla Jigsaw. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.